Well, that was day one of our Mexican Fiesta party, people, and we are just getting started. Please welcome our #1 superstar.
Me. Hello. Tragically, I have unperished, because my last video, in which I was eaten by a Spinosaurus, has been blocked worldwide. As such, I'm back, which means I can tell you all about how Forza Horizon 5 is a dystopian nightmare. It's a dramatic statement, but it's beyond true. I realised this as I sat down to play the game for the very first time this summer. Right off the bat, I was greeted with a particularly disturbing feature as, without me giving any permissions or entering any of my personal information, the game greeted me by speaking my real name aloud. I'd been home alone for a week or so at the time, so I hadn't really had any in-depth conversation with anyone except on phone calls, and I certainly hadn't heard my name in a while, meaning that I really wasn't expecting this and found it a little unsettling, to be honest. But that's not the incident that the title of this video is referring to. No, there's a few of them, including, of course, the cultiest statement that I can imagine being thrown at me by a video game, which is when the title drops and the character who guides you through the game says, "Welcome to your new home." A home where your real-world friends and their achievements thus far are put into its story without anyone's permission. A home which steals us from the real world and places us in its travel fantasy, released to the masses amidst a global pandemic when lots of people couldn't even go outside. But worst of all, and the real reason I was so outraged, is that Forza Horizon 5 has a voiced protagonist.
Unacceptable! Emergency!
This is in fact the greatest offence that I can imagine, especially as there still hasn't really been a story in a Horizon game since the original back in 2012. Bring back Darius Flint, damn it! Then you can have your stupid voice protagonist who says and does things that I'm not thinking, despite also somehow being me. But beyond all of these monstrosities lies the true title of today's video, which is Forza Horizon 5. Meh. It's not a full review, just a rant, really. Anyway, one of the grievances with my personal experience with Forza Horizon 5 is that I was playing it on my Xbox One S rather than the Series X/S, which was clearly the intended way of enjoying the game.
This is the way
Forza
was meant to be played.
The game is clearly designed to showcase the new generation of consoles, which led to something of a bizarre experience as I was inundated with technical show-offery that was simultaneously cropping up every 15 seconds and not paying off in the slightest, seeing as my console was not the one that was designed to be shown off. As such, I was getting a lot of
Is it just me, or does that sky look glorious?
and my response was kind of sure. To be honest, it made it feel a lot less like Horizon, as it kept bending and breaking the usual tone of the series by showing off the landscapes, cutting your driving experience off for cutscenes, and just generally abandoning the drives and vibes atmosphere of the first two in particular. Like, of course the games have always looked great, that's a huge part of why it's so nice to just drive around in circles, an entirely aimless activity that arguably isn't done better in any other AAA franchise right now. However, one of the great things about those earlier games was that you discovered things by yourself, with the most beautiful spots and songs and cars only becoming apparent as you uncovered them on your own, scrimping and saving and choosing your favourites in a way that lent a sense of freedom and exclusivity to the gameplay and your time spent driving each specific vehicle. That progress and the feeling of making it by yourself are all but gone in a game where you're instructed to appreciate its artful scenery and handed a fourth Lamborghini right at the beginning just because you played Forza Horizon 3 one time at a mate's house. And what's worse is the fact that that free supercar that can hold its own against any other vehicle in the game is immediately put into conflict with the character customization, where a single pair of shorts costs 1/10 of the price of the Forza branded limited edition BMW X5M, which GameRant called the best drag racing car available in the game. It costs the same as 10 pairs of socks, and not because the car is cheap. This is especially heinous when you go into the shop for the first time and are encouraged to try on some clothes, and then doing so means that you lose access to the outfit that you started the game with, and then you either have to purchase it back at extortionate prices, and I mean more than some cars' prices, or do what I did and defiantly look like a chump in your crappy new outfit until you can afford something else. Like so many games over the past 10 to 15 years, Forza has become about cosmetic character upgrades rather than any of the reasons that you might actually go to the game in the first place. There's even a whole shop just for a separate secret currency that seems designed to be bought, in the vein of those secondary elite currencies in mobile games that Jack Black's kids spent $3 on. Oh look, this game is available to 3-year-olds, what a fucking shock. And going back to the X5 3000 BMW Megatron that will win you every drag race in the game, I'm sorry to say this, but so will every other car that's capable of competing within its bracket. This is because drag races in the Forza Horizon games are nigh on impossible to lose, presumably unless you're manually changing gears, but there weren't enough of them for me to bother with that. And if I came to play a super serious racing game, I wouldn't have picked the one about the car festival where you're encouraged to flatten cacti as though cars haven't done enough to the environment already and are now just waging war directly on Mother Earth. Sorry, that was a weird tangent. But even though I didn't pick Horizon, a game in which you can rewind time whenever someone overtakes you, to be stuck in some high-skilled, high-tension battle for first place in every moment of gameplay, it would be nice if there was some semblance of challenge in this entire series of races. You see, drag races are just accelerating straight forwards until someone crosses the finish line, right? And even if you shift the difficulty several settings above that on which the game starts, that doesn't change at all. What you need to do is hold down the accelerator and occasionally adjust at the start if you got thrown off course. Therefore, the game can only actually adjust the difficulty through the speeds of the cars involved, and thus effectively has to choose between A, making you slower than your rivals, in turn making it impossible to win the race, and B, making you faster than your rivals, in turn making it impossible to lose. If it forced you to change gears manually in these races, or somehow added another gameplay element, the drag races would be worth winning, and therefore feel like they were worth playing. But as it is, you can literally win them with your eyes closed. I know because I tried, and I won by a mile. The showcases and recent entries have also been more explicitly scripted, seeming like nothing but a spectacle with very little of the challenge or the who will win factor that sports in general almost always need to feel interesting. Maybe it's just me, but when I play sports, it's to take part in a challenge that would quickly become boring if I were the predetermined winner of every match. So it's disappointing to see, upon testing it a little, that the vehicles you race against in this series' iconic showcase events will actively slow down so that you can race underneath a flying monster truck, or narrowly cross paths with a train like in that one scene in Cars. Instead of being all your skill and this unique car against another titanic vehicle in a tough fight for dominance, I'm pretty sure that you couldn't lose these unless you were trying. And that's no slight on anyone that did, but there's absolutely nothing rewarding about finally overtaking your opponent on the last stretch of a long and arduous race when you can look back and see the train teleporting to the next spot for a good photo opportunity once it thinks you're not looking. For me, playing 5, the magic of Horizon felt like it left at some point in the 3 years since the previous game, if not a long time before that. And whilst there are a handful of improved qualities, such as the player character finally being stated as having been there before, which means I no longer have to headcanon that I'm secretly competing again under a new name or something, there generally remains the question, Forza Horizon, what the fuck are you doing? The music was good though. Thanks for watching. Sorry that this was a bit of a rambly one, but I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, I would really appreciate it if you left a like. And if there's anything that you wanted to say, I always love to read and respond to the comments that I get. So I think that's everything out of the way, and I will see you next time.